Tonight, the candid comment now heard around the world. The president fires back at Justin Trudeau.
Well, he's two-faced.
And Donald Trump's own private moment, caught on tape.
I don't know if I'll ever be able to work there.
The growing numbers of Canadians being banned from the U.S. Your grocery bill is about to go up. Why climate change is to blame. And our investigation into vaping continues. Is it as dangerous as smoking? Tonight, our experts are answering your questions. This is The National. It was supposed to be a show of unity in uncertain times. World leaders standing together to mark 70 years of the NATO alliance. But by the end of the two-day summit, it was this moment from the sidelines threatening to overshadow everything else. A candid exchange between Prime Minister Justin Trudeau and other leaders seeming to vent about the U.S. President Donald Trump. That moment went viral at a pretty awkward time, right before today's summit with all the NATO allies, Rosie.
Yeah, it went big time viral, Andrew, and that's why Trudeau was forced to explain himself today after Trump came out with a response of his own, firing back at the Prime Minister. But this, of course, isn't the first time the two leaders have exchanged strong words. Evan Dyer takes us through the latest back and forth.
It seemed like a friendly and relaxed moment between leaders. A little too relaxed, it turned out. Although Boris Johnson, Emmanuel Macron and the Netherlands' Mark Rutte all seemed to be in on the joke, the camera and the microphone captured Trudeau more than the others. And it was Trudeau that Trump focused on.
Well, he's two-faced.
Do you think that Germany is too naive?
And honestly, with Trudeau, he's a nice guy. I find him to be a very nice guy. But, you know, the truth is that I called him out on the fact that he's not paying 2%. And I guess he's not very happy about it.
What are you at? What is your number?
Indeed, Trump did put Trudeau on the spot yesterday, pressing him on Canada's failure to meet a defense spending target of 2% of GDP.
1.3. 1.4.
And again today.
Canada, they have money, and they should be paying 2%. So I called him out on that, and I'm sure he wasn't happy about it, but that's the way it is.
All right. Okay, there we go.
It's not the first time Trudeau's comments after a Trump meeting have triggered the president. It happened at the G7 last year.
Canadians were polite, we're reasonable, but we also will not be pushed around.
Trump saw those remarks on Air Force One and accused Trudeau of being so meek and mild during our G7 meetings, only to give a news conference after I left saying that U.S. tariffs were kind of insulting and he will not be pushed around. Very dishonest and weak. But if Trump seemed genuinely angry after the G7, he appeared more amused this time around. A microphone caught him this afternoon remarking how funny it was that he'd called Trudeau two-faced.
It was funny when I said the guy's two-faced, you know that.
As for Trudeau, he reacted the way he did last year.
I think people know that the relationship between Canada and the United States is deep and goes far beyond the relationship between Prime Minister and the President. Although I will say, as you all know, we have a very good and constructive relationship between me and the President.
The Prime Minister was already more conscious of his behavior overseas, especially after last year's highly criticized trip to India. Visits are shorter and fewer family members come along. It may be that this trip leads to another adjustment. Evan Dyer, CBC News, Watford, England.
So as Evan mentioned there are indeed efforts for Trudeau to keep a lower profile, focus less on him and more on cooperation. And that's expected to be one of the messages in tomorrow's speech from the throne as this minority parliament gets to work. David Cochran sets it up for us.
Since winning the election, Justin Trudeau has intentionally stayed out of the national spotlight and put the focus on the work. But now he's accidentally back in the global spotlight just as Parliament gets back to work.
Justin Trudeau's poor judgment, lack of professionalism, and love of drama continues to weaken Canada's position on the world stage.
Hot mic or no hot mic, the Conservatives were unlikely to support the upcoming throne speech. With Andrew Scheer fighting to keep his job, Scheer won't help Trudeau do his.
And when the Prime Minister of this country puts his agenda ahead of the good of all Canadians, he will indeed find himself opposed.
So in a parliament that will rely on cooperation, the Liberal throne speech will need to appeal to other parties.
So he can't take us for granted. We are more than willing to work together, but we will not vote for something that doesn't align with what Canadians need.
We're looking for some answers to questions which have been raised by the Prime Minister of Quebec, mostly about the transfer for health care.
Liberal sources believe the throne speech will give those other parties something to vote for. It will focus on cooperation in a minority parliament and strengthening national unity. The throne speech will also promise a progressive policy agenda that includes action on fighting climate change and on issues like gun control to help make communities safer. There will also be a promise to help the middle class, including legislation to cut taxes that will be tabled in Parliament next week. David Cochran, CBC News, Ottawa.
We will be there as well tomorrow for the throne speech. I'll be there too, outside the Senate, for the official opening of a new session of Parliament, the 43rd session. I'll walk you through everything you need to know before and after the speech from the throne. Adishu will be there, as will Vashi Kapellas, host of Power and Politics, the opposition reaction that will follow too. You can watch our CBC News special tomorrow at 2 p.m. Eastern on CBC TV, CBC News Network, online, and on GEM. No way to miss us. Tomorrow will be a busy day in Ottawa and an important one too. For now, it's back to Andrew in Toronto.
Well, across Ontario today, for hundreds of thousands of families, plans changed. Public high school teachers went on a one-day strike to protest what their union calls bad faith bargaining by the government. And as you'll hear from Ashley Burke, maybe this one-off could happen again.
No ifs, no buts, no educational cuts.
The picket lines are up, the battle lines drawn. It's the first province-wide strike by public high school teachers in 22 years.
This is deja vu. We had a premier under Mike Harris who would not listen to education workers, and we have a premier with Doug Ford, an education minister under Stephen Lecce. He is spinning, he is marketing, he is not listening.
I'll support you.
More than 60,000 teachers and support workers walked off the job today.
It's about protecting our education system from damaging cuts.
A move that shut down public high schools across Ontario and some elementary schools too.
5 and 7.
Leaving some parents rushing to find last-minute daycare.
Just a big scramble this morning to find somewhere to take them or work from home or rearrange my whole day.
Colleen McQuarrie's son couldn't celebrate his birthday at school with his friends.
It's pretty frustrating and disappointing. I fully support our teachers and their the staff of our schools, and I really would have loved for things to be worked out.
The Ontario government blames the union, saying it wants a 2% pay increase rather than the government's legislated cap of 1%.
They're being unreasonable by saying no. We're not going to accept that. We want a $1.5 billion or else we're going to strike like they did today.
My members for 7 straight years have fallen behind the cost of living.
But the union's president says the real fight is over the Ford government's cuts and larger class sizes.
We're not going to allow this government to try to pay off a deficit on the backs of the students that we currently have in the school system. That's not just.
I'm standing here right now not about the money at all. I'd like to see some support for our young ones. I'd like to see just more hands-on help in the classroom, less chaos, less craziness going on.
The union warns there could be more one-day strikes down the line if the government doesn't change its position. Ashley Burke, CBC News, Ottawa.
Now, the Ontario Premier missed those protests. He was out of the country today, but he defended the province's position and said concessions have been made.
We want to have the kids in the classroom. The only people that are getting hurt right now are the students, and we want to make sure that we get this deal signed, and we're negotiating in good faith.
Doug Ford made those comments in Washington. He's there on a trade mission. But speaking of Washington, eclipsing all else there was the impeachment probe and a critical new round of hearings to decide if Donald Trump's actions qualify as an impeachable offense. The first witnesses were legal scholars. The president said it would be boring, but as Paul Hunter reports, it was anything but.
It was a hearing that lasted hours upon hours, talking about the U.S. president, the allegations against him, and the law.
If what we're talking about is not impeachable, then nothing is impeachable.
4 experts explaining to U.S. lawmakers what the U.S. Constitution says when it comes to Trump's alleged actions. They were blunt and forceful.
Put simply, a president should resist foreign interference in our elections, not demand it
Some all but insisting that based on the evidence, Trump must be impeached.
What has happened in the case today is something that I do not think we have ever seen before. A president who has doubled down on violating his oath to faithfully execute the laws and to protect and defend the Constitution.
The key allegation that Trump tried to pressure Ukraine's president into digging up dirt on Trump rival Joe Biden for Trump's own benefit.
What we're talking about is an abuse of power. And we're talking about an abuse of power that only the president can commit.
President Trump has committed impeachable high crimes and misdemeanors by corruptly abusing the office of the presidency.
Republicans pushed back hard, calling it nothing but Democratic sour grapes after the last election.
Because you just don't like the guy. You haven't liked him since November of 2016.
Indeed, even the constitutional expert they brought in said he's no fan of the president.
I voted against him.
But then he said that is irrelevant. What matters, he said, is fairness, that this process is moving too quickly. The evidence to impeach Trump, he said, wafer thin, reminding lawmakers.
You just have to prove it, and you haven't.
And yet, say others, for Trump to now go unpunished would invite future such behavior by any president. The hearings resume next week. Paul Hunter, CBC News, Washington.
Now, impeachment proceedings are indeed moving quickly. The Judiciary Committee could recommend articles of impeachment against Trump within the next 2 weeks, setting up a possible vote in the full House of Representatives by Christmas. Now, if and when the Democratic majority there does impeach Trump, the case moves to the Senate for a trial. But conviction, and therefore Trump's removal from office, highly unlikely, since Republicans control that upper chamber of Congress. Now, President Trump might be a factor in a growing trend we have noticed at the Canada-U.S. border. When Canadians are refused entry by U.S. border guards, we have new numbers showing that increasingly they're actually being banned from the country for years. Jacqueline Hansen looked into why.
Stefan Cole is doing fitness gigs in his home province of Quebec rather than working his dream job he was offered in the United States after he was unexpectedly banned from the country.
I don't have any criminal records, so it's kind of weird for me that this would happen.
Cole says he did what his prospective employer told him to and tried to apply for a TN visa at the U.S. border. The employer thought, as an athletic trainer, Cole could qualify under the category of allied medical professionals. It appears border officials disagreed.
I figured that the worst that would happen is they would deny the visa, and then I would have to apply again or apply for a different visa.
But Cole wasn't just denied entry, he was slapped with a 5-year ban, also known as an expedited removal. This immigration lawyer says in the past, people like Cole would have simply been turned away, not banned.
They're basically using these expedited removals, these 5-year bars, in lieu of just a simple denied entry.
New data from U.S. Customs and Border Protection shows it's a growing trend. Travelers from Canada hit with long-term bans when trying to enter the U.S. by land has almost doubled in the past year, from roughly 300 to more than 600. While it's up to the United States Customs and Border Protection who it lets in, lawyers say expedited removals are often used for cases of fraud and misrepresentation.
They may have a lack of documentation, they may be naive, but there's no justification under immigration laws to give out a 5-year bar to these Canadians.
When we asked the CBP, it insisted there hasn't been a policy change, but some immigration lawyers suspect President Trump is having an influence.
They know they're going to be backed up by their government when this is questioned.
It can cost thousands of dollars for an application and lawyer fees to get an expedited removal waived. Cole plans to try, even though he lost his job offer.
I don't know if I'll ever be able to work there or not.
Still, he hopes his career isn't derailed, just delayed. Jacqueline Hansen, CBC News, Toronto.
Another Roman Catholic diocese in Canada is coming under pressure over allegations of sexual abuse by clergy. Now, last month, the Fifth Estate followed survivors in Vancouver on their quest for accountability, and the Archdiocese there published a partial list of known abusers. Now, a group of survivors in London, Ontario is preparing to release its own list. Here's Fifth Estate host Gillian Findlay.
What's interesting here, Jerry, is look at where he was.
Hamilton, Windsor, London, Sarnia, Chatham.
Brenda Brunel has assembled the list with the help of other abuse survivors as well as lawyers.
It's overwhelming. I mean, my goodness, just in the London diocese alone, and this is, by the way, an incomplete list. This is only names that we were able to gather.
There are 36 names on her list, priests charged, convicted, or sued, resulting in settlements. Some of the names are notorious in the London diocese.
It was 2 years ago when Charles Sylvester was charged with sexually assaulting 47 girls at 5 different parishes.
Get out of my way. You too.
There are priests who for years abused children, in some cases dozens of them. Priests who were protected by the church, not stopped, until victims went to police. But not every victim did, so there are names on the list the church has never revealed as abusers, including Father Ron Reeves. He's the priest Miriam McCormick says abused her. When she sued in 2013, the diocese paid her more than $250,000 rather than go to court. Recognition of decades of suffering, which she says included suicide attempts.
And it was earth-shattering, truly.
McCormick was just 10 when she says the abuse started. Reeves is now dead, but she's always believed she wasn't the only one.
Part of the grooming involved this priest telling me what he did to other girls. And there was this kind of salacious glee about what he did to other girls. So I knew there were others.
At the minimum, it was an indication there had been other victims.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely.
And that is what those behind the London list hope will happen next. Victims who still haven't revealed their abuse will come forward. A church that too often kept abuse secret will finally be forced to account.
I mean, it is really a moment for the diocese across Canada, for those bishops, those leaders to say, is this going to be forced upon us as well? Or are we going to get ahead of this and launch our own?
Okay, so Jillian, what's the response been from the diocese in London?
Well, like the survivors group, Andrew, we did ask the Bishop of London to release his own list of credibly accused abusers, but he refused, just like he refused our interview requests. In a statement, though, the diocese said it wasn't up to the church to reveal information that might inadvertently identify survivors. But it kind of misses the point. It's survivors who are demanding this information be made public and who are increasingly prepared to do it themselves if the church won't. Vancouver's released a partial list of abusive priests. Now we have this list from London. The question many people are asking is which diocese will be next?
We'll be watching. Jillian, thanks very much.
Thanks.
And check out the Fifth Estate's original investigation into sexual abuse within the Roman Catholic Church in Canada. The list is available on CBC Gem or on cbc.ca/fifth. Okay, we have an update on a Radio Canada investigation that we brought you last night about a former RCMP training facility in Ontario that was riddled with contaminants like asbestos, lead, silica, and toxic mold. Today, Radio Canada obtained an internal RCMP memo citing our story and confirming that hazardous substances were present in the Kemptville facility. The building has since been torn down, but the memo goes on to say a letter will be sent to every employee who ever trained there. 6 RCMP members who trained at the facility died prematurely of neurological disease or cancer. Okay, we're back in just 2 minutes with more news on The National. Your groceries are about to cost you more. We'll tell you how much and what's behind the price jump. And later, our investigation into vaping. Is it as bad as smoking? Our experts answer your questions.
And we're watching stories across Canada, including a doctor shortage so acute families are worried their loved ones will be kicked out of nursing homes. We'll be right back.
South Korea is facing down a life and death issue tonight, one intimately tied with its music industry. Kpop tends to project a wholesome image, but a string of deaths is revealing a darker side of the industry. And the latest, a 27-year-old actor and singer. Here's Eli Glasner.
China's beginning was a familiar K-pop story. Signed to a major agency, he began making music videos, performing at concerts, and acting. But the end is also familiar. Another young star discovered dead at home. Police not yet commenting on the cause.
Many fans are fed up by this standard that we need to think of K-pop stars as sort of these ideal, perfect beings.
It's the third death in 2 months of young Korean stars. Gu Hara was found dead at home of an apparent suicide. That follows the death of Suli. Both had spoken out about cyberbullying.
It's unfortunately a reflection of South Korean society where there aren't the mental health resources. The idea of mental health is still quite a taboo subject.
It was back in 2017 when these fans lost another K-pop performer.
It hits home, not gonna lie, it does. Especially like when he's my favorite.
Chung Hyung sang about the pressure of trying to be perfect. Fans say the industry isn't listening.
The companies really need to look after their idols and make sure that their mental health is in check. Like, are they doing okay or not?
The record-smashing success of bands like BTS, with over 12 million albums sold, has created a new wave of stars and supporters. But all that attention online has a dark side: anti-fans.
A lot of the times it's derived from like, oh, I think that my idol is better than yours, so I'm gonna tear that idol down.
Well, fans say the companies need to take the problem seriously. Later this month, politicians in Korea will start debating a bill nicknamed Suli's Law, designed to stop online abuse. Eli Glaster, CBC News, Toronto.
Okay, let's go to our national newsroom in Vancouver, where Ian is watching developing stories.
And we're going to start with a breaking story in Hawaii tonight. Officials confirming that a man believed to be a U.S. sailor shot 3 civilians at a naval shipyard at Pearl Harbor. The gunman then shooting and killing himself. Let's take a look at the scene just outside the U.S. military base. It had been locked down as police responded to reports of the shooting. We don't have details yet of the victim's condition or the motive for the attack. Here in Canada, we're watching a story in Hamilton where a teenager has been arrested after a toddler was assaulted and then rushed to hospital.
I come down and there's, in my living room standing there is a female with a bloody covered baby covered in cuts.
A neighbor describing the horrifying moments. The baby arrived at her front steps. The toddler was taken to hospital with serious injuries, but she is expected to survive. Investigators say a 16-year-old boy barricaded himself inside a nearby home, and that prompted an 8-hour standoff. A former hockey coach and Montreal police officer has been charged with sexually assaulting young boys. Police say the allegations against Francois Lamar stretch over a 25-year period between 1972 and 1997. The alleged victims ranged in age from 9 to 16 at the time. So far, 5 have come forward, but police believe there could be others. And in Nova Scotia, families are sounding the alarm as the province's ongoing doctor shortage could have a devastating impact on seniors. The private company that runs a number of long-term homes says it's been forced to restrict new admissions, and those who go to hospital might not be allowed to return unless they have their own doctor.
The hardest decision we had to make was to put her into long-term care, and now we have to decide whether or not it's worth if she needs to go to hospital for an assessment.
The province says it's working with the health authority to try to find solutions. George Zimmerman, who shot and killed Florida teenager Trayvon Martin in 2012, is now suing Martin's family, and that's one of the international stories we'll have in about 10 minutes.
And time for a quick break. Up next, what's driving the cost of food in Canada? We'll show you why you'll likely be paying more for groceries next year. And later, the little girl making history in Nova Scotia. She's the youngest ever to receive the province's Medal of Bravery. Stay right where you are. On the heels of a report showing a jump in food bank use in Ontario, a new forecast says food prices will go up across the country next year by nearly $500 per family. And as Thomas Daigle tells us, experts blame climate change.
At Toronto's St. Lawrence Market, Phil Gintoli is known as the king of the berries. But even the king says he's powerless when it comes to price increases.
For example, strawberries, right now, $8 for one of those packages. It's through the roof.
The real reasons for price hikes here may be found thousands of kilometers away. Flooding affecting crops in California or early frost spoiling fruit in Florida. even the devastating drought in Central America.
Like, I went to school for environmental science, so we know that this is a problem.
I think it's more of an excuse than a real factor. We've always had droughts, we've always had heavy rains.
But a new report highlights climate change as a major factor likely to drive up prices in 2020.
We're expecting the average Canadian family to spend $487 more this year compared to last year.
Fruit could cost 3.5% more, vegetables up to an extra 4%, while meat could see a hike of up to 6%. Add all that up, and an average family is expected to spend $12,667 on food. Cutting down on pollution brings new challenges. Take single-use plastic packaging. The report points out Canadians are demanding businesses cut down on that waste, but it comes at a cost.
If they're willing to save the planet by paying a little bit more for their food products in green packaging.
The study's authors see indoor farming as a potential solution to higher prices, cutting down on transportation costs, and the risk of crops spoiling too. Thomas Dagle, CBC News, Toronto.
Now, if coleslaw happens to be on the menu at home, you'll want to check the fridge. The Canadian Food Inspection Agency is advising of a recall for a brand of pre-packaged coleslaw. It's due to possible contamination from salmonella. President's Choice coleslaw was distributed mainly in Ontario and the Western provinces. The recall affects products with a best before date of December 4th. So far, no illnesses have been reported. And we'll be right back with the next part of our vaping investigation, where we ask the question, is it as dangerous as smoking? The answer is not a straightforward yes or no. We've got some help to answer some of your questions right after the break.
Welcome back to our national newsroom in Vancouver. You may remember the name George Zimmerman. He was shot and killed an unarmed black teenager in Florida back in 2012, and now he's suing the teen's family. Zimmerman was a neighborhood watch captain in his gated community when he shot 17-year-old Trayvon Martin. Zimmerman argued it was self-defense. He was acquitted, and now he's seeking $100 million in damages from Martin's parents, state prosecutors, and two women who he says provided false statements to investigators during the trial. A lawyer for the Martin family calls the lawsuit unfounded and reckless. In Poland, a search is underway for survivors following an explosion at a ski resort. Thick smoke coming from the collapsed building that was once home to 8 people, including children. Police say it isn't clear if the residents were buried under the rubble. Fire officials believe the explosion was caused by a ruptured gas line. Former U.S. President Jimmy Carter has been released from hospital following treatment for a urinary tract infection. A statement from the Carter Center says the 95-year-old looks forward to rest and recovery at his home in Plains, Georgia. Carter's been in and out of hospital in recent months. He was admitted in November to relieve pressure on his brain and twice in October for injuries he sustained in separate falls. Carter is the oldest living former president in U.S. history. I'll be back a little later for the moment. Now back to Andrew in Toronto.
This week, CBC News has been digging into vaping and its health effects. Our investigation has given you a glimpse into how it got so popular so quickly, all the chemicals that you might find in a vape pod, even what they can do to your teeth. But ultimately, how the long-term health effects are unknown. For something that's caught on so aggressively, we know awfully little about it. So tonight, the million-dollar question, is vaping as dangerous as smoking? And whatever the answer to that question, should we treat them, restrict them, regulate them the same way? 3 very smart people joining us to help answer those very questions tonight. Dr. Teresa Martineau is a respirologist at the University Health Network here in Toronto. Cameron Prozic is a grade 12 student trustee at the Hamilton School Board, and for years has worked with his local public health unit to inform others about vaping. And joining us from the University of Waterloo, Dave Hammond, who has spent a considerable amount of time studying tobacco control policies, also served as an advisor to the World Health Organization. Hello to all of you. So earlier this week, we've been getting questions from online, from all sorts of people about vaping. This one came from Randy Leahy on Facebook asking, smoking cigarettes causes lung cancer. We know this. Vaping causes what exactly? Is vaping really less dangerous? Dr. Martineau, can you start us off?
Yeah, I think that's a key question. You know, it's true that vaping or the vape products don't contain some of the known toxic substances in cigarettes, such as the soot, the carbon, the particulate matter. However, they contain a bunch of other chemicals that are not contained in cigarettes. So there's a lot of unknown. However, I would say that there are three things that actually I worry about as being more dangerous about vaping, and that's the addictive potential, because some of them have higher nicotine content than cigarettes. Number two is the acute effect on the lungs that we have seen that is not seen in cigarettes. And then the known presence of some of the toxic substances in the vapes that I worry will cause long-term effects that we have potentially not seen yet.
In terms of the documented cases of vaping-related illness, though, have we done enough to separate the black market vape devices and vape liquids from the, you know, more mainstream, legitimate ones that you might find on a store shelf?
You know, I don't think that has been a huge concern. And the studies that have been done in the US have actually studied some of the off-the-shelf products that people are accessing in a legitimate, legal way, and have analyzed the content of those substances and have found substances that were not documented on the ingredient list, and high concentrations of some toxic substances.
Cameron, how do you think of that question of more dangerous, less dangerous than smoking?
See, often we get caught up in people use the term safe and safer, and that's where I actually become concerned, because when you use the term safer than smoking, people jump to immediately saying, oh, it's safe, I can do it, it doesn't matter. I always like the terms dangerous, less dangerous, harmful, less harmful, just because A, we don't know the long-term health effects, right? B, what we can say right now is that nicotine is addictive, it hooks their users, and that's what's happening, right? A new generation of youth is getting hooked to nicotine.
And you see this quite prevalently in your high school.
Very much, exactly. So, you know, you walk out, we walk out of your high school, what used to be the smoke pit is now the vape pit, right? You start smelling clouds of cotton candy when you walk out the front door of your high school, right?
David, the only upside to vaping from a health perspective that I can think of is if it helps smokers stop smoking. Is that happening?
It certainly can happen. I mean, the hope around vaping was that you have a less harmful alternative. And just to put things into perspective, in the 10 years that e-cigarettes have been on the market in Canada, we've had somewhere around 400,000 people die from conventional smoking cigarettes. We don't have one recorded death yet in Canada from e-cigarettes. We suspect they will be harmful in the long term. We know enough now to say that if you don't smoke, you should not be using these products. But we do need that context. Now, the idea was that these products would help some individual smokers to quit smoking. There was a bigger plan, which was to say that the emergence of a less harmful nicotine delivery source that people were willing to use would actually help to usher out the era of the dirtiest mode of delivery, which is to say smoke. Well, we haven't seen action on that today.
Okay, yeah, right. And on that front, David, we got an excellent question from Kimberly Dawn on Facebook asking, why has the federal government allowed flavored vape pods if the intent is smoking cessation? I mean, the point being, if the intent was genuinely to help people stop smoking, surely there was a more focused way of doing it.
Well, I think you're absolutely right. And what we've seen is that, you know, I think these products are pretty much what they expected, but that doesn't mean that you should open up the market, have them sold next to the, you know, candy bars and slushy machine with flavors like peanut butter and jam and cotton candy. And so they have that potential, but they only have that potential if adult smokers are using them and not kids. And we've actually failed both constituencies to the point where most health professionals do not want to even talk about these products because they're associated with a 15-year-old grabbing them on their way out to a party rather than a 50-year-old using them to quit smoking. So it's what you said. It has everything to do with how it's regulated, and the current market, the current regulations are broken. The question is what can we do to fix it so we reduce use among kids but actually make these accessible to adults?
I guess, Dr. Martineau, I mean, the best case scenario for a smoker who takes up vaping is that they eventually quit both.
That would be great.
The worst case scenario, though, is what? I mean, if they end up continuing both?
Potentially continuing both, yeah, and increasing their nicotine addiction and potentially even increasing their use of both.
Okay, I want to get to another viewer question. This is from Louise Gilmer from Petawawa, Ontario.
How much nicotine are these teenagers consuming a day compared to cigarettes, for example? And what is the danger of consuming that much nicotine?
Okay, so two questions for the price of one. Cameron, when you look at, first of all, high school students who are vaping, how much are they typically vaping?
It's generally a lot. If you own a vape, you're hitting it 24/7, right? But the scary thing is that it's a social thing. So when you're at a party, you're vaping the entire time. So when you see that, you're consuming a lot of nicotine, right? And it's up to 45 milligrams per milliliter of nicotine in these, smaller Juul products. That's scary. That is immediately going to start changing your brain and start getting you addicted.
But Dr. Martineau, I mean, so what does that actually mean? I mean, if we're trying to draw an equivalence between vaping and smoking, do we know? I mean, is there a how much is too much sort of a question that we can ask when it comes to nicotine?
It really seems like it's a spectrum. Different people will have different responses to it, but nicotine, especially long term, really has effects on the nervous system, on nerves throughout the body. It's a stimulant. It causes constriction of muscles throughout the body, and it causes constriction of blood vessels. It's really toxic to the heart. It has multiple effects on the whole body, especially long term, and especially on the developing brain in the young people.
David, what's the fear here if an entire generation gets hooked on nicotine?
Well, we've seen the first expansion of the nicotine market among Canadian youth in decades as a result. Look, nicotine has killed more people in Canada and around the world than any war or, any other disease over the last 100 years. So, we need to respect that this is a very serious drug, and the consequences of starting in youth are often a lifetime commitment. At the same time, we need to recognize that, vaping is a mode of drug delivery. The risks are what you're vaping. And so around 80 to 90% of the serious cases of lung disease are actually from THC oils and contaminants in those oils. There's just enough nicotine products that it raises important questions, but we need to appreciate that vaping is not going to go away. What we need is proper regulation so that at the very first step we know what are in these products. And it will come as a surprise to most people that right now our federal and provincial governments, to my knowledge, don't even have ingredient lists of the products that millions of Canadians are using. And that doesn't, that doesn't reflect a well-regulated market, in my opinion, especially as we see some of these risks emerging.
So as we look forward then, I mean, in terms of the original question of whether we ought to treat vaping the same way we treat smoking, lots of ways that you've raised, David, that we could be doing that, whether it's packaging, whether it's, age restrictions, whether it's nicotine content, whether it's advertising bans, taxation. We haven't even gone there yet. And, this is something that BC is working towards. Is it any or all of those things? And the follow-up maybe, can you put the genie back in the bottle?
We can't put the genie back in the bottle because this is a technology that is out there and it's not going away. And so I don't think, some U.S. states are talking about banning it outright. If we have concerns about what's in them, you don't want these going into the back dark alleys again. So what do we need to do? Get rid of flavors like peanut butter and jam and cotton candy. Get the advertising out of venues where they reach kids. We need to have a serious conversation about the nicotine levels. Should there be adult-only access stores? Should we actually treat these products like we do other nicotine replacement therapy? And they could be sold in the same way where we sell nicotine gum and the nicotine patch. So, that's an important question that we haven't answered, and it provides a lot more protections than having these products in every corner store where the kids inevitably confront them when they're buying their, lifesavers or gum.
Cameron, he's talking about your generation. Final thought.
It's definitely alarming to see this many people taking up vaping. And what it seems like is, I'll just lay it out. There's attractive flavors on the table. They're marketing by the candy bars. It's so simple to hold and use these products. So just laying that out, it does seem like they are targeting youth, which is very sad to see.
Dr. Martineau, last thought.
Yeah, I think it's our obligation to really work towards protecting the young and making sure that people are well informed. And currently there is not clear packaging description and not enough information out there. So I think that's definitely what we need to work towards.
David, Cameron, Dr. Martineau, thanks very much.
My pleasure.
Thanks for having us.
Okay, when we come back, Canadian veterans return 75 years later after helping liberate a small Italian town. We're back after this.
I'm Elamine Abdul-Mahmoud in for Jamie Poisson. Tomorrow on CBC's daily news podcast Front Burner, what the story of an alleged prolific fraudster reveals about how prevalent and devastating identity theft can be for Canadians. Subscribe wherever you get your podcasts.
In a corner of Italy today, they remembered the Canadians. 75 years ago, thousands of them slogged up the coast to push back German defenses. The Canadians' role in the Italian campaign has sometimes been overlooked, but not where Margaret Evans spent the day.
Under the arch, a gateway to a city and a portal to the past. The people of Ravenna commemorating the arrival of Canadian soldiers to their city on December 4th, 1944. This year, with help from the pipes and drums of the Canadian Armed Forces, a salute to those who walked through the gate and beyond 75 years ago. The Italian campaign swept from the south to the north over a 20-month challenge to the Germans. 15 Canadian veterans of those battles are here this week.
I started in Sicily and worked all the way up.
Gordon Fennell is alive, he says, because he was carrying shoes his mother sent him when he got engaged.
These are shoes because I didn't want to get married in tank boots.
They were beside him and protected him from shrapnel when his tank was attacked.
Those are lucky shoes when
yeah, well, yes, to save my life.
93,000 Canadians took part in the campaign. Nearly 6,000 died. Today, Canada's Governor-General Julie Payette led the tributes.
I heard it, I felt it. Canada remembers. We know that Italy remembers. We will never forget. Nous n'oublierons jamais.
Veterans of the Italian campaign will tell you they feel it was overshadowed by other events in the war, the D-Day landings, the push towards Germany. But some of the hardest fought battles of the war took place here. Another cemetery where Canadian soldiers lie, shadows stretching out behind their graves like men longing to stand again. Rosalia Fantoni has spent her life documenting them. She is the guardian of their memory, she says, for they were the guardians of her childhood. She was 4 when the Canadians arrived in Villanova, not long after her father was hung by the Germans. My work comes from a sense of gratitude, she says. I want people and school children to remember what we have now is because these soldiers saved our lives. For the veterans, the passing of the torch is critical.
I loved having so many school children here with it.
Veteran Don White worries the world still hasn't learned from the horrors of war.
I don't know how to express it, but it makes me a little disappointed that people today can't get along the way they should. And I mean worldwide.
Wisdom in danger of fading from sight if the past slips away. Margaret Evans, CBC News, Ravenna, Italy.
And we have to take a quick break, but when we come back, our moment. The youngest person to receive Nova Scotia's Medal of Bravery. Sophie LeBlanc turned 8 years old this week, and today she got a pretty rare gift. LeBlanc became the youngest person in Nova Scotia's history to receive its Medal of Bravery. Now, it was about a year ago her family got into a pretty bad car crash, but it was she who managed to find help and ultimately get everyone to safety. So her moment of recognition is our moment tonight.
I would ask Sophia to come forward to accept the Medal of Bravery.
It's a blue fuzzy case.
Very nice.
It's a shiny silver. I'm going to put it in my room.
6-year-old Sophie LeBlanc and her 2 younger siblings were passengers in a vehicle driven by their mother. The vehicle lost control and landed on its roof in the river below. Sophia then climbed up the embankment and flagged down help for her family. Congratulations.
All I can think is that I'm super, super proud.
Yeah.
I know a few other people who are super, super proud. But, you know, you saw the photo there, right? It's absolutely stunning. And the presenter sort of explains a little bit of what happened. But imagine that moment of impact. She tried to get one of her siblings out. Her two-year-old sibling was able to get them out. But then her brother was unconscious. Her mother had a broken arm. She would have had to get out of the car and then start to make that climb looking for help.
And just 6 years old, right? I mean, you're in a household with little kids. You know how unimaginable it is that she's able to do that. Yeah. She said, I was a little bit scared when she climbed up the embankment, but not much scared. I knew I could save my family. Incredible story. That is The National for December the 4th. Good night.
Good night.